What if this moment isn't really happening? What if reality is just code and you're inside the program? A moment of intense deja vu or a coincidence so wild it couldn't possibly be random. A theory so mind-bending it makes you question the very fabric of reality itself. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and debated ideas of our time, the simulation hypothesis. Are we all just characters in an incredibly advanced computer game? Let's start at the beginning. The idea that our reality isn't what it seems is ancient. Philosophers like Plato with his allegory of the cave, or Rene Descartes with his evil demon, have questioned the nature of existence for centuries. But the modern simulation theory got its biggest boost from a 2003 paper by Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom. His argument, known as the simulation argument, is incredibly compelling, and it doesn't even say we are in a simulation. It just says one of three things is almost certainly true. Here's the breakdown. Possibility one, civilizations like ours almost always go extinct before they develop the technology to create what Bostrom calls ancestor simulations. That is, super realistic simulations of their own past. This is a bit of a downer, suggesting we're on a path to self-destruction. Possibility two, advanced civilizations, for whatever reason, lose all interest in running these kinds of simulations. Maybe they find it unethical, or maybe they just get bored and move on to other cosmic hobbies. And then there's possibility three, the one that keeps people up at night. If the first two are false, it means that advanced civilizations do create these simulations, and they likely create them in vast numbers. If that's the case, simple probability suggests that there would be billions upon billions of simulated beings for every one real biological being. So, statistically speaking, it's far more likely that we are one of those simulated consciousnesses than we are part of the original base reality. Think about it this way. Look at the progress of our own video games. In just a few decades, we've gone from Pong, two rectangles and a dot, to hyper-realistic virtual reality worlds that can almost fool our senses. Now, project that technological growth forward 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years. An advanced civilization could have computing power beyond our wildest dreams. Creating a simulation of an entire universe, complete with conscious beings who believe they are real, might be as simple for them as playing The Sims is for us. So, is there any evidence? Well, that's where things get really interesting and speculative. Some physicists have pointed out strange features of our universe that look, well, a bit like a computer program. For instance, the universe seems to have a maximum speed limit, the speed of light. In a computer simulation, having a maximum processing speed for information transfer makes perfect sense. It's a fundamental limitation of the hardware. Then there's the pixelated nature of reality. Quantum mechanics tells us that at the smallest scales, things aren't continuous. Energy comes in discrete packets called quanta. If you try to zoom in on reality forever, you eventually hit a fundamental limit, a sort of pixel of spacetime known as the Planck length. Could this be the resolution of our simulated universe? The smallest possible unit that the cosmic computer can render? Even stranger is the observer effect in quantum physics, where the act of measuring a particle seems to affect its state. It's as if the universe doesn't bother rendering the details until someone is actually looking. Game developers use a similar trick called lazy rendering to save processing power. They only render the parts of the game world that the player is currently looking at. Is our reality doing the same thing? Is it only calculating the position of a particle when a conscious observer, that's us, forces it to? And what about those glitches I mentioned? The strange coincidences, the moments of deja vu. Could these be bugs in the code? Or maybe a sign that the simulation is being rebooted or a saved state is being reloaded. It's a tantalizing idea, but of course, it's impossible to prove. Any evidence we find could, in theory, just be another part of the simulation itself, designed to keep us engaged and questioning. Now, let's bring in some of the big names who take this seriously. Elon Musk famously stated that the odds we are not in a simulation are 1 in billions. He argues that given any rate of improvement at all in technology, games will eventually become indistinguishable from reality. And since we would likely run billions of such simulations, we're probably in one. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a bit more on the fence, giving it a 50-50 chance, but he finds the argument compelling. He points out that we consider ourselves the smartest beings on the planet, yet the gap between our intelligence and a chimp's is tiny compared to a potential hyper-intelligent being who might be running our simulation. What would we look like to them? Our most profound thoughts might seem like babbling. But not everyone is convinced. Physicist Sabine Hossenfelder, for example, argues that the theory is fundamentally unscientific because it's not falsifiable. How could you ever design an experiment to prove you're not in a simulation? Any result could be part of the simulation's programming. She also points out that many of the so-called clues in physics can be explained in other ways without needing to invoke a cosmic programmer. It's a classic case of fitting the evidence to a cool theory rather than the other way around. Another counterargument is the problem of nested simulations. If we can create simulations and we are in a simulation, then couldn't our simulated selves eventually create their own simulations? You could end up with simulations within simulations within simulations, an infinite Russian doll of realities. Some physicists argued this would create a computational paradox, or that the processing power required would be impossible, causing the whole system to crash. So, let's say for a moment that we are living in a simulation. What does that actually mean for us? Should we all just give up? If nothing is real, does anything matter? Well, most philosophers who entertain the idea, including Bostrom himself, say no. Your pain, your joy, your love, your relationships, they all feel real to you. The consciousness you are experiencing is real, even if the substrate it's running on is silicon instead of carbon. Your life is just as meaningful, or meaningless, as it was before you considered the possibility. The game is the only game you get to play, so you might as well play it to the best of your ability. In fact, it could even be seen as an optimistic idea. It implies that consciousness is not tied to biology. It could be a transferable, computable pattern. It also suggests that there might be a creator or creators, not a religious deity, but a programmer or a team of post-human scientists. And if there's a programmer, maybe there's a purpose to the simulation. Are they studying their history? Running a sociological experiment? Or maybe, just maybe, it's a form of digital afterlife, and we're all here for a reason we can't yet comprehend. It opens up a whole new realm of philosophical and even spiritual possibilities. Ultimately, the simulation hypothesis is the ultimate thought experiment. It forces us to confront the deepest questions about consciousness, reality, and our place in the cosmos. We have no definitive proof either way, only tantalizing clues and mind-bending arguments. It's a puzzle box with no key. But isn't that what makes it so captivating? The possibility that reality is so much grander, stranger, and more complex than we ever imagined. So, what do you think? Are we biological beings living in a base reality, or are we lines of code in a cosmic computer? Is that weird coincidence you had last week just chance, or was it a glitch in the matrix? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to hear your theories. It's a conversation that stretches the limits of our imagination, and that's always a good thing. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the nature of reality. If you enjoyed bending your brain with me, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious and maybe keep an eye out for any glitches.